Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Dance Science Podcast. I'm your host, the Dance Scientist, and the Dance Science Podcast intends to build connections and drive discussion on how we can improve our field and make dance science more normalized. Thank you for being here, and please enjoy today's episode. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Like I said, I'm your guys' host, the Dance Scientist, and today is episode number 40. I have a guest episode with the amazing Veronica. Veronica is a personal trainer. She's a former PT assistant, and she is now rebranding her whole marketing approach into more of a ballet restorative program for dancers who have more limitations. So I'm really excited to hear about her new approach today. But first, I just want to say thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, and thank you, Maria, for having me. I'm really excited to talk about this stuff with you because I know that we think very much alike
Yeah.
in the science approach to how ballet and how dance in general should be instructed.
So can you first to start by describing your journey in dance and what led you into this rebrand officially?
Well, yeah. So, I started dancing when I was 7. And honestly, I always had injuries here and there, on and off. I have always had hypermobility in my body, but
Mhm.
not the understanding how to control it, what to strengthen, and how to use it to my advantage. I grew up in a very recreational studio, which that's fine, but it wasn't the kind of training that would have actually, progressed me to being a professional elite ballerina. So I never felt like I was really a ballet body or ballet type just because of the background of my training. Um, so, years went by, I went to college, I got a degree in dance, and I got to go on and perform professionally, freelancing with some ballet companies and also dancing for Carnival Cruise Lines. Um, and as I kept going through the series of years of dancing, I had countless injuries just pile up on top of each other. Um, one of which, many of which were on my left side of my body. And as a personal trainer and somebody who's a myofascial mobility expert, you know that the body is connected, so everything's connected to everything. And later on, as I'm now 33, I have figured out that it wasn't so much that I had a hip problem on my left or that I had a knee problem on my left. It was really that the beginning of the problems were happening because my foot was messed up. And here I am, post-operatively, went back to class for the first time post getting a couple bones removed out of my foot, and a reconstruction of the posterior tib. Uh, it's it's really crazy because I've learned so much about my own body in the process, which has then helped me understand how to work with my clients. And it's been very eye-opening. At first, it was very humbling and frustrating. But this has kind of been a huge pivot for me as I couldn't film or teach or do a lot of things like take my kids to the park that I love last year. And 2024 was really hard for me. I couldn't even walk around the zoo. My foot was in so much pain. And for me, being somebody who has a passion towards therapy and helping people recover, it was very frustrating for me to realize that things I did in my past were now coming to fruition and I had to finally do something about it.
And so when you were saying it was feeling humbling, so when
Yeah.
you were taking your first ballet classes post rehab, what was maybe one of the most challenging things for you? So did you start with just bar at first and then you kind of progressed it?
So actually, I got cleared to do any kind of like therapeutic exercise about 3 months ago, I think. And then I started to work with a very wonderful therapist that I'm working with. She works with the Cleveland Ballet, which is our professional company here in my area. And She started me out really with just pure manual therapy because I was at risk for tearing the tendon off. Because what happened was is they took off, it's called a Kidner procedure for those of you who want to know. They took off my accessory navicular bone, which was almost as big as a chicken nugget. It's so sick. And then they it was that big. He said it was one of the biggest he's ever seen. And oh no, this isn't the right picture, but he actually have these x-rays sitting right here because so they took off the accessory navicular, and so that was my foot after, and then they took off this giant bone spur that was preventing me from going back into releve. And I didn't understand. I'm like, why can't I do releve anymore? This is pathetic. And now here in this picture, they show, that shows that the bone is gone, so I can pull my toe back. Yeah, so we started out with like manual therapy mainly, and then I progressed to doing just some progressive resistive exercises, non-weight bearing. Then I went to the bar, and then finally, my therapist, I'm not discharged, so I'm still in therapy, but I'm working on my own therapy at home, doing my own kinds of things where I'm doing a lot of like neuromuscular rehab with my foot myself, and then stopping in to see my PT for some manual therapy because it's not great to do manual on yourself. But
And yeah.
yeah. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, I was gonna say too, like I really see this new wave that you're kind of pushing with this new branding. It really kind of goes in line with like the big picture of just progressing dance and progressing dance science. Because we were talking before we started recording that, like, not every not every body is the perfect ballet body anymore, right? And I mean, like, we have to be realistic that dancers are going to have limitations. And
Yeah.
like we were saying before, it's important for educators not to just have an all or nothing mentality, right?
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about how you kind of approach that when dancers are injured? What is kind of your approach?
Yeah. Well, I would say I definitely have been inspired by my own instructor.
Mm-hmm.
She is a very forward-thinking instructor and
Oh,
places a lot of emphasis on the anatomy of the individual over the aesthetic that should be maintained in the ballet classroom. And whenever I take on a new client, I always do an hour, like I call it an evaluation, but it's really just like a movement analysis where I'm just taking their body and dissecting it and looking at it and saying, "Oh, okay, this is why this isn't working." And like I said just a little bit ago, I became a myofascial mobility specialist, which if you know about the fascial lines, they're all connected and everything affects everything in your body.
yeah.
So that's how I approach evaluation versus looking at, like, I've had so many people where they come to me and they're like, I'm really having trouble with my releve. Like my left side releve is not going to, it doesn't go as high as my right. I have pain in my foot, list of, issues. Well, I'm not just looking at your left-sided releve. I'm going to look at the
Like,
entire fascial line that's
the whole
connected to
body,
your foot. Exactly. Because
the
you
whole
have
body.
to, yeah. And then 9 times out of 10, I'm looking at these things and I'm saying, okay, well, are you having this? Is this happening? Is this happening? Then you go to look at their ballet technique and keeping those fascial lines in your mind, and you're like, oh, it's actually not that. It's this. Like, and that problem area is causing a symptom in another body part. But we're so hyper fixated on solving the symptom that the root
Right.
of the problem often gets neglected. And then the
Yeah.
dancer is frustrated because they go back to class and they're like, well, I just got over these symptoms. Now, why are they coming back? I did all the exercises. They discharged me from PT. They said everything looks good. But there's that huge gap there where therapists, as wonderful as they all are, has that lack of knowledge of ballet. So they
Mm,
can't
that's
stand
a
there
big.
and functionally assess what is the root problem, because they
Mm,
lack an entire language of knowledge. And
right.
likewise with a ballet teacher who would try to progress an injured body back, they lack all of that PT, that anatomy. I mean, yes, of course we have some of it. Like as a dance teacher, you have some, but there's a huge gap there.
It's not enough.
And it's
Yeah.
not enough. You have to have I mean, there were 2 years where I was practicing clinically and I was teaching a very small amount of dance. And in that 2 years of time where I was putting my hands on patients, that's when I started to understand the human body, not from teaching dance.
And another thing that we were talking about at the beginning is I do want to make clear though, I realize that not all older teachers have that mentality, right? And Veronica and I both agree on this. They're not all, they don't all have their doors closed, as I call it sometimes, right? I've met a
Yeah.
lot of great older ballet teachers, for example, who, like I said, I've even learned amazing things from. So I know that there are a lot of amazing older teachers out there who are actually putting effort into learning some new ways to do things. Because I think what
Yeah.
happens is, like, as people age, they think it's hard to continue their education. You know what I'm saying? I
Yeah.
don't think they
Yeah.
realize that there's like actually some easy ways that they can still stay up to date, right? Maybe they
Yeah.
think like, oh, I don't want to just go get a fitness certification or become like a PT or a personal trainer, but like
And they
there's
don't
actually
have to.
exactly, yeah, like if
That's
you
why my
actually
program exists. No.
yeah, or I mean, like us online programs. I mean, like I've taken
Yeah.
workshops for like literally $20, $10. I mean, from like really high level, strong organizations. I mean, like there's opportunities out there. You can just buy a dance anatomy book. I mean, we're talking
Exactly.
simple things here that people can be doing. And so yeah, I think it's our
Yeah.
responsibility as educators.
It doesn't
Yes.
matter how old you are, you
Oh,
can always learn something new.
yeah.
And, unfortunately, there are uneducated teachers of all ages out there
Yep.
who maybe the aspect of continuing ed sounds really scary. Because I think that there is like I had somebody message me one time about my instructor platform and they're like, I really want to learn more, but I'm really afraid that I'm not going to be smart enough to even take your instructor platform. And I'm like,
Oh,
it's not set up like that. It's not like hey, pass this test and see if you can understand the crazy things I'm about to talk about. Like, it's to help educators continue on and, be able to deliver quality content and understand how to work with various body types. Um, and the recovery component of understanding, or working with body types, recovery is so huge and has been so neglected in the dance world,
oh, I mean,
to the point where people don't even understand what recovery even is. Like, oh,
no.
is it just laying on the couch? No,
It's
it's not.
doing nothing. Right. Like it's again, there's so many disconnects in the dance world, whereas like if you look in like the sports world, like
Yeah,
athletes are like they're regularly like they taper, before shows, big performances, for example, what dancers should be doing, but like a few of these scientific approaches are like really just on the cutting edge of like blending into the dance world when really they should be normal things that we should
yeah,
kind of already have adopted. Like dancers should know how to rest, they should know how to recover, they should know what periodization is. They should know that before a performance they need to be tapering. They can't be taking 30 more dance classes the week of their performance.
exactly.
Like,
I remember the week that we were in Tech Week, for shows, and we would be taking the exact same amount of classes
oh,
that we
oh,
were all throughout the year. And then there was no ramp up period or such thing as a ramp up period for when you
there's not
came back after a break. It was like you came back, and I remember being told, you have muscle memory. You should be doing it like you were before. No, those neural pathways have not been used. They have
they
not
still
been
not.
used. And I think
They
it
forgot
takes
what
like
to
two
do.
weeks to decondition. Um, no, that's not recovery. That's not a ramp up. That's not healthy for anybody to be held to the same expectation. And I even said this in one of my instructor workshops. I said, if you expect your students to come back and look exactly like they left or better, because I think there also is that expectation that you go on break and you come back better.
Yeah.
Um, you are going to see a lot of fallout, and you're going to see a lot of students leave the dance world because of that. Just because of how you are thinking of how they should look when they walk back in that room, you're going to see fallout. Because I remember seeing that fallout when I was a student with my peers, where they'd be like, you know what? We just got back from doing competition season. I'm tired. I look like crap. Teacher thinks I look like crap. I don't want to deal with this right now. I'm just going to play spring sports and I'm going to drop out for the spring.
And I mean, dancers don't really have rest periods set up into their training, right? They don't really have, like we are saying, they don't have ramp up, they don't have tapering. So, I mean, these things aren't traditionally in dancers training. And so, again, when we're approaching educators who don't really understand, like, rest is important in a certain capacity, right? I think it's,
Yeah.
again, it's like think all or nothing, right? Like either we sit on the couch for 2 weeks or we have to work out every day at 8 a.m., right? I think it's like
Right.
can find a balance for people.
And
And
why
then
are we
when we
telling our students to go
well,
take workshops over winter break? That's the time where they should not be doing those things. They should be doing like gentle
that's
stuff to
crazy.
their body.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like that's what they call like, relative rest, right? Where
Yeah,
you're moving your body in different ways.
exactly. Like you're not, and I think that I put out a recovery routine on YouTube a while ago for winter break, and it just literally is focusing on like breathing,
Mm.
holding like good alignment, and then like myofascial releasing, like where they're just kind of moving through very slow positions, not even holding a stretch. You don't have to do like
A
an
stretch.
hour worth of technique class or like the craziest
Yeah.
stretch routine in the world to maintain and allow your body to have that like facilitation of healing.
Yeah.
It's not that hard to get a good rest routine into your schedule. Um it's not about just sitting on the couch at all.
And that kind of piggybacks into, can you tell us a little bit about kind of like what new services you're going to be offering in this new rebrand? I think you were talking about a senior program before.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to be doing a summer intensive in June on the 27th through the 29th. And that summer intensive is going to be in person in Cleveland, Ohio, as well as, yeah, first time I'm going to be in person. I'm actually a real human. Um, so, and I'm gonna offer it online as well. So, for those of you who travel is not in the books, then you're going to have the opportunity to join in live as well as on demand to those classes. And that is a huge thing that I'm focused on right now because I'm so excited about it. And I want to offer resources to both the pre-professional dancer who, may be trying to go into the professional track, but the pre-professional, the college dancer, as well as my lovely seniors and adults. And I'm launching a specific segment in the Veronica I platform that's all about training affected adults and seniors because there are very few resources out there for those. Um, and I've also recently, as of me having my surgery, I have followed myself through being non-weight bearing and being now coming back to class and taking class in my dancer resilience program. So my DRP, my dancer resilience program, that is going to help a pre-professional or pretty much dancer of any age. It's just not geared towards like our senior population. It's more pre-professional and adult, but helping you go from injured to back to class, and then having those routines as well as resources and readings in your fingertips to say, okay, I'm back in class now. How can I prevent this from happening again? Or what are some other things that I can do to keep my body healthy? Because so much of, like you said, our progress is built off of our ability to recover. And I've had so many dancers tell me, well, I cross train and well, I do this, but
They think
I
it's
don't think I need to do recovery. Like, I don't need to do recovery. I do cross training and stretching in my classes, so it's fine. Sure, you have to do cross training.
I
You
mean,
have to
it's
do, to a certain extent. Yeah, but it's like recovery
it's
is
like
not the
a
same
chart.
thing.
Yeah, it's a
What's
full
that?
pie chart. It's like a pie chart of a few things, right? When we're talking
Yeah.
about like training dancers,
That's a great,
optimize.
you're so good at visualizations. Yes, exactly. A pie chart. Because cross training is part of the pie chart. So is recovery and restorative. Then there's the
Nutrition,
preventative. And then
sleep,
there's the technique.
like everything, sleep, nutrition. We could go on and on, but it's yeah,
Mental health.
right. And we like to zone in on just one part of the pie chart, and then we neglect that there's other parts.
Exactly. Exactly. You couldn't have said it better. And I think that's where people get really burnt out and really like strung out is that they focus way too much on technique and not enough on the other elements. But I also want to like just say, because I think that it can be really overwhelming when you're sitting there and you're like, if somebody's listening to this thinking, okay, well, I take 7 classes a week, I have homework, I have
Right.
this, I have this. How am I supposed to make time for all
To
of
add
these things?
more, yeah. Or
Yeah,
to add any more. Yeah.
yeah. Even
Right.
adult, you work a 9 to 5 job, you're doing ballet recreationally. What does that mean for you if you're maybe trying to do some freelancing or something else? It can be really tough. And I mean, I have 2 kids. I run my business. I'm also a stay-at-home mom with the kids. And it's hard for me to find time for myself. But I think that you just kind of have to, even if it's
If you make it
15
a
minutes.
priority, right. Like if it's important to you, you'll make it a priority. You'll make a few minutes in your day for it.
Right.
Like
You
sometimes
know,
my workout is just 10 minutes long. And like you can do
yeah,
a lot in minutes. Like
exactly.
a lot. Yeah.
Have you ever
Doesn't have
read any of the studies that show like athletes that do cross conditioning or cross training 1 time a week versus the athlete that does 0 times a week? And I think that it was a study based on high school athletics, actually. But I remember it piqued my interest because I was thinking, yeah, even 1 day a week can do a lot more than doing 0. So those of the people who
yeah,
are thinking, well, I just have 1 day, 1 day's better than nothing. It will
yeah,
do
I mean,
something.
and if you start somewhere, you'll form the habit, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
And we're talking about like the senior programs. Like for me, I
yeah,
feel like a lot of the ones that already exist are really just kind of again geared just towards like, okay, give them a beginner class and let's just like see them out the door, right? And so it's like where's the quality training that they deserve just as much as a pre-professional dancer? And
yeah,
obviously I think that you'll be able to give the unique approach with your education and your personal experience with your own surgery and this rehab experience. So it's going to
yeah,
be perfect, I feel. Yeah.
yeah.
Do you feel like you have any challenges?
In creating the program, is that what you're
Yeah.
asking?
Yeah. Do you feel like,
Um,
yeah, maybe roadblock?
you know, I have worked with a lot of different patients. I worked at a nursing home and I also worked in acute care and then I also worked in outpatient. So I got to see all the settings.
Mm,
Um, so I have a good amount of hands-on experience with the geriatric population as well as affected bodies. And me having multiple injuries and recovering from a surgery in my foot as well as a C-section, I feel comfortable and confident, but I also don't live in a aged body. So I've been leaning on a lot of my mentors um,
mhm.
who have been through lots of different experiences than I. and pulling from what they feel are really frustrations and difficulties that they want to see addressed. And that has been extremely helpful for me to understand what I need to bring to the table as a instructor. Because right now I'm actually working with a student who is an older dancer, and I am confident that she's going to probably be on point by this summer, and she's in her 70s. So, and I've seen other people in my own ballet class who I believe that the other person I'm thinking of is 70 as well. And she recently, as of last year, went on point. So, and the thing is that these are good dancers. Like, that's where you're talking about, like, they need to be pushed and treated as equals. Like,
Um,
they can go on point if they want to go on point, if they train properly, if their body is safe, and there is no reason that, hey, if they had an ankle fusion, then yeah, I don't think that we're going to be putting you on point. I'm sorry. But if there is no medical reason, they can still have the potential to train and progress to getting on point. I don't care how old you are. It doesn't matter. Your body still has that capacity to improve.
And again, like, I think that maybe kind of steals the joy out of dance. Again, if the adult ballet dancer goes into a class and again is just kind of given the same cookie cutter things, then they're like, okay,
Yeah.
well, I took ballet for so many years and all we did was please and we did the same combos at the bar. And I'm like, but I really enjoyed dancing when I was a kid, right? And maybe they want to
Yeah.
like revisit that passion. And so, we have to be giving them that opportunity that they deserve, I really think. So I think this
Yeah,
is
I
great.
agree. Yeah, I 100% agree.
Yep. And where can people learn more about you and access your resources? And I'll make sure that I put this on the website page as well for the
Okay.
podcast.
Okay. So if you want to learn more about what I do, or you want to get a private evaluation, or maybe you want to get on the wait list for when the senior program launches, the other option is obviously the Dancer Resilience portal, or the Dancer Resilience program that is for younger dancers. You go to veronicakballet.com. And if you just
Mhm.
scroll down, you'll see there's like several little icons there that will say, like, what are you looking for? Are you looking for instructor training? Are you looking for, cross training, recovery, or the senior program? And so those are my biggest things that I offer, with obviously my focus is really on trying to promote the education to instructors and help those who need help, restore, recover, and get back to ballet.
And when you say seniors, by the way, I just kind of thought of this in my head. Is there a specific age that you're starting with and like capping it off to?
I've been saying like seniors 50 plus, but
Okay.
and I hate to like throw, okay, you
I
hit
know.
50 and you're a senior
I
now. Um,
know you're,
but
you're
I
old.
kind of, yeah, but I kind of, it is different, I guess. I say, 50 plus, just because that's when I started to see a lot of the joint replacement surgeries happening, and the more affected bodies. Whereas, I would even say a 45-year-old's probably going to perform more at like they might even be taking a professional class still. And it doesn't mean, like I said, it doesn't mean once you hit 50, you're done.
Right. But
There may be some 50-year-olds who are like, well, you know what? The senior platform isn't really what I need. I actually want to go the other route and do the Dancer Resilience program. That's totally fine. It's just more that these are for our degenerative affected bodies. They're going to be more pulled into that, the 50 plus category, where they need to progress from a baseline and climb the ladder. Um, and then I'd encourage, if you're more accelerated and you've been dancing for a while as a senior, you know, you can take any class you want. You are not locked into, you know, just my 50 plus platform. There's no reason you can't go and get online and take an intermediate or an advanced class and make your own modifications.
Right.
Um, I just hate to, for the sake of convenience, I guess I have to divide it. But,
Right.
it kind of is, it could be disheartening. I could see if you're like, oh, I'm 50, I can't take
Yeah.
that advanced class. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. You can still take an advanced class with me.
Yeah. So I like, again, like I like that you're gonna have it divided, and I mean, I know that you already have things pretty well organized, but I like that it's gonna people will still have options, like you said, if they want to kind of jump through things. Because again, we don't need to be placing people just in one box unless they have a certain issue that maybe,
Yeah.
yes, kind of does place them into that box, right?
Yeah.
But
And
most of
and
the
I
time
will
they're
be
gonna be
talking about like total hip replacements,
right.
and like joint replacements, fusions. I'm going to be addressing these things in the senior course. Um, and it also is never a bad idea to, if you are a more advanced senior, to work backwards and start with the basic classes because you don't know what you might learn from me. Because I might tell you something that you didn't know about your own body, and, progress up the ladder from there and say, okay, this was actually complementary to, other things I'm doing, and I've learned a lot.
Right. I mean, like, the approach that like a teacher like you and I would give to a ballet class is just a little bit more anatomical, for
Yeah,
example.
yeah.
Then yeah,
Oh, yeah.
then you're I'm just being honest. Yeah. I mean, I'm
Oh,
just being
yeah.
honest.
And if,
Yeah.
yeah, it's good to be honest, because if
Yeah.
somebody's like, I don't want to hear all that stuff, and they just want to blast through technique, then, you
That's
might
fine.
not be a great fit.
But like you said, like they don't know what they don't know until they know,
Yeah.
right? Until they know. And then, oh, hmm. But it again, it wouldn't just be your average ballet beginner ballet class, I assume.
Nope,
So that's gonna be
definitely not. I mean, the first class I just recorded the other day, and I was like, man, I hope I didn't go like too in depth about like everything here, but I think people will appreciate it.
at that age, it's like it's something like they can focus on too. It's
Yeah,
something that we can get passionate about. Be like, oh, I can understand my body more. I have this different opportunity. Maybe they
yeah,
weren't given that anatomy information when they were younger, so this
true.
is different for
Yeah,
them. Yeah, I mean,
very
not
true.
all of them grew up with anatomy in their training, so might be their first time. So that's
Yeah, and I
awesome.
do a lot of integration of I did a lot of I worked with a lot of stroke patients in the hospital, so I integrate a lot of the neuromuscular and vestibular stuff into this first class specifically. It was
Yeah.
lots of different eye tracking, balance, hold your arms in first while you do this stuff, and it's like, why can't we, we can, of course, we can increase our seniors' ability to maintain equilibrium. We don't want them to fall. That's a horrible thing. So let's make some fun balance exercises in ballet style.
Right. And I mean, obviously, fall risk is such a thing with that population, so it blends perfectly. And then you can make it
Yeah.
fun ballet. I love that. I
Yeah.
just absolutely love that. Yes. So what's one piece of wisdom to share with our audience today, even though this whole episode has been amazing?
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. I could talk to you for probably like 3 hours and then
No,
everybody would
literally,
fall asleep. Yeah.
literally.
Well, my biggest piece of wisdom is don't let your body stop you from being able to do what you want to do. Because my body has been through so many transformations and changes throughout my life. And by looking and comparing my body to other people, I've become hypercritical and closed a lot of doors on myself in my youth because I was just simply comparing myself, putting a blanket statement over myself, um, and not taking the time to understand what my body actually could give to ballet, and that like I actually am a beautiful dancer. It's just because of other people, I was hurting so bad physically and mentally that I shut so many doors on myself. So don't let your body be a barrier no matter what your age is.
And if your teachers are telling you that, maybe find a new place to take classes, or if you have to stay where you're at, find someone like Veronica to complement your training so that you can build that bridge, right? Because she can
Yeah.
explain your teacher's cues in a better way, obviously, in a more scientific
And
way.
I have worked alongside younger dancers and older ones who I've had to collaborate with teachers behind the scenes to help them understand why their student isn't doing what they are demanding. And that it's not that the student's being disrespectful or
Or
ignoring them.
lazy.
It's that
Or lazy.
you're lazy. I hate that. I hate when I hear that. It's that your student is not understanding what you're saying. And, so if I have to collaborate with your teacher, hey, I'm here for you to help with that. Um, but yeah, if you're stuck in a studio situation where there's no other options, it can be hard. So reach out to people online because we're here for you. We're both, Maria too, we're both here to help you feel better in your dance body, not burn you out, not make you feel like you're getting boxed out.
Right. To help you dance your best and perform your
Yeah.
best. Live your best life, your best, healthiest life as a human
Yeah,
and a dancer, whatever you want to be.
exactly. Because you can't be a good dancer unless you feel like yourself in your human body.
Right. A
Trust
good human
me.
first.
Yeah,
Human
you have
first.
to. I think Catherine Morgan said something about, and I can't quote her verbatim, but she said something about loving being a human, or we're humans first. And it's so true. You've got to
It's
always remember
and we forget that we identify as, oh, I'm a dancer, I'm a dancer, I'm a dancer. And it's like, well, we're human too.
that. We're human. We all have feelings, physical
Humans.
and mental.
Well, thank you so much for today's episode. I really appreciate it. And so this kind of piggybacks into why I'm always recommending the importance of dancers seeing dance specific PTs if they can, right? I
Yeah.
understand that, if you're living in a very rural area, maybe you don't have access to those resources quite yet, right?
Yeah.
Maybe there's not dance PTs everywhere is if I would like for there to be, right? But
Yeah.
they have understand the language of dance movement, right? Dance movement is not a football player, right? It's not
No.
it's not having knowledge of sports, right? They can be
No. Yeah,
really knowledgeable
exactly.
in sports, but dance we all know dance is different, right? We know dance is different and we know dance is
Yeah.
unique. So
Yeah.
I'm always
It's
saying that that's important.
and kind of transitioning into what I'm actually in the in production of working on is my senior restorative ballet course
Mm,
because I when I was working in clinics, there's a basic kind of, I would say, cookie cutter recipe that you kind of push out on all total hips, all total knees, total shoulder, whatever, your degenerative patient is that they're coming in post-op. There's a very bread and butter, like, here we go. This is what we're going to jump to. However, those same patients are now getting discharged from therapy, going back to their normal lives. And the ones that are actual senior dancers who maybe they're doing dance like for the first time in their life and they decided, hey, I want to just do ballet for the, health benefit, or they've been a lifelong dancer and they're now coming back to ballet after this setback. The therapeutic exercises that are, set out there and, unfortunately, insurance plays a role in it because we get cut off after so many
right,
visits to see a
right.
therapist. That's a
And
huge barrier for not
it's
only seniors, but dancers of all ages. Insurance,
you know,
unfortunately, controls all of
how many
this.
sessions,
If,
right? Yeah, how many
so
sessions
if
you
your
get.
insurance plan
That's
doesn't cover therapy, because I know I was on insurance plans that I didn't have therapy visits when I was dancing professionally. I did not have therapy. So I didn't go. I couldn't afford it, you know? Um, but there's a huge gap there on how we're treating our patient to return to function. And I
mm,
just remember in school they drilled the whole return to function idea, but then it was like they would drill that, but they're talking to the general population And they're talking about generalized life, your ability to put your groceries away. Can you pass a test that you can sit to stand safely?
Yeah, open
Okay,
a fridge.
that's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's great. That's great, and we need that. But then a lot of our people are getting discharged from therapy because they've met their goals and they're not being addressed that's functional to ballet. It's not specific to what they actually need to return to ballet.
And again, I think another interesting thing that we're talking about before we started recording is the importance for dancers with limitations, or even adult dancers that we were talking about before. They really should be getting the same amount of attention and the same amount of high level training as a young pre-professional dancer is, right?
Yeah,
Like they really should, in my opinion, they should be looked at as equal, right? We can't just look
yeah,
at these dancers, seniors' limitations, or adults who are just maybe coming back to ballet later in life, right? We can't just look at them and throw them into a beginner ballet class and just think that that's enough, right? Like they could be
no,
doing more than that, right? They could be
yeah.
progressing too, you know?
Well, the thing is, yeah, and the thing is that I think it's not looking at everybody as equals so much as is like finding each person's potential, tapping into it, and changing your strategies as an educator to fit the mold of the student. Senior
Mm,
dancers, even adult dancers, like anybody, that is not just, you don't throw them all into a mixed lot beginner class and say, all right, whatever. There should be
sure,
segments where it's
yeah.
okay,
I,
adult beginner, adult level 1, and level 2, but the problem is it all kind of falls back into finances. Can your studio finance to pay these people to divide out the class? Well, if there's not the demand, then guess what? They all kind of fall into the pot.
yep,
So I
love
guess, you
that.
know, it's hard because you gotta, as a studio owner, that's gotta be really challenging. But that's kind of why I decided to do what I'm doing. I want to be able to take those dancers and say, hey, okay, here's your baseline. You just got out of your period where you've been in a slump. Now let's ramp up and go. Because it can't be, okay, everyone, we're gonna do pliés, tendus, and dégagés, and that's your class for, people just take that class 1,000 times and there is no growth. It's just stagnation.
Right. And I mean, what we're saying here is like there's really like no practicality at the end of the day, right? Like it's like words sitting on a paper, but it's like, okay, how are we actually going to act on it? How are we going to actually bring it into the dance world, right? Bring it into the dance
Right.
world makes sense for dancers, right? For each of
Mm-hmm.
their ages levels. And
Yeah.
something
And
I also wanted to ask you today is through this kind of experience, what is something that you learned that you wish you knew as a young dancer?
it's funny because I was just posting about this like the other day, but I, when I was put on point at 11, I knew I had flat feet. And I
Mm.
thought that, where your phalange is, and then your distal phalange, which, I wish I had like a
Uh,
skeleton with me, but
uh,
you should be dancing on the top of your toes when you're in your
yeah.
point shoe. If you are looking at an x-ray of what's happening inside of a point shoe, it is not that you're on top of the phalanges, that middle area right here, and your toes curled under. That's not correct. It's everything's lengthened through here, and the
Long toes.
distal part is where you are. However, as a younger dancer, I would look at other people's feet in the classroom that looked super arched, and I
Yep.
thought in my head, then if that looks like that, then I must be doing it wrong. So I should be doing it like this and
Hmm.
crunching. And the studies I've read, the personal experience I've gone through, a lot of information in the dance science and dance medicine world points to dancers that dance like that. Achilles tendon problems, plantar fascia problems, bunions, hammer toes, bone spurs. And unfortunately, because I had that lovely big accessory navicular in there too, the tarsal tunnel got impinged because I was dancing on the wrong part of my foot. And, you know, no one stopped me. I'm sure I got corrected to be on top of my box, but the fact is that I did not understand what that correction even meant until I became an older dancer and went back to school for therapy. And I was like, wow, I think I've been dancing on point wrong for about 20 years.
I mean, for you, until it was almost too late, right? When you
Right.
started understanding what that cue even meant. And I,
Exactly.
for us, when I mean, for me at least, I don't know if you guys had, like, we grew up like thinking arch stretchers were normal, that you should,
Oh my gosh.
but I mean, I would just sit in those like
So did
for,
I.
oh, thinking that
Yep.
those would
And
help me.
yeah, and I had my teacher who told me, I remember she said, all you need to do is shove your feet under the couch and then
Yeah,
scoot your butt out and lock your
yeah,
knees down. And then
yeah,
you're going to get over your boxes better. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, that was such bad
right.
advice and so,
Oh,
so damaging. And I just kept thinking it was me. I'm doing it wrong. I'm not trying hard enough. There's something wrong with me. But as I realized it was not about me at all, it was about I was not being taught to use my foot properly because the vast majority of dancers don't have a foot like mine. They have a foot, the people that make it, they have a foot that's anatomically advantaged. And so, there's a lack of resources and even education to those that, have
right,
flat feet, um,
exactly.
to teach them how to utilize it to their advantage. I mean, I even got somebody yesterday on Instagram messaged me and they're like, no offense, but if you have a flat foot, you're just not going to get hired as a dancer and you need to stop fear
Right.
mongering and giving people false hope. And I was like, uh, no, I'm sorry, sweetie, but you need to read my blog article because it's very clear that
You can safely improve flat feet. Like you can
what's
strengthen
that?
them.
Yeah,
You can safely
yeah,
improve them. Like
exactly.
I've had flat feet all my life.
I have a very wonderful friend who dances with the Cleveland Ballet. She has beautiful feet, and they are definitely not like um uh, they're not they're not high arches. They're very like normal feet, and the way that she uses her point, the way that she looks on point, you would never look at her and think, "Oh, that dancer has flat feet."
You're
No,
never gonna
because they know how to
no,
use the technique
no.
behind what is, you
Yeah.
know,
Like dancers who are strong enough at that level, you're never gonna be able to tell. So no, I don't
no.
agree with you either. Yeah, it's just insane.
No. I mean,
I
sure, I guess if somebody has a psychotically banana foot, you're gonna be like, whoa. But
I I can't really believe that like the same, the same some of the same things are just still flying out there. It's just kind of crazy to me after all this time and all this research.
there's too much information out there to just ignore it and think
Ignore.
and use your age or your amount of years teaching as a justification. Because I mean, I'm about to sound real offensive probably, but like, I'm sorry, but if you've been teaching for 50 years and it's taken you until now to reach out and pick something up that contraindicates or that goes against what you teach, uh, that's ignorance that you haven't actually decided to educate yourself beyond your bubble. You
I know.
teaching for 50 years doesn't justify you doing something that's been proven to
Nothing.
hurt someone.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's the amount of years that you've taught just has nothing to do with it. You can
No.
you can be teaching using modern approaches at any age. And I just like you said, I don't think we need to be using age as an excuse. It's not an excuse just because you've been
It's
teaching
not.
the plie like that for 50 years. If anything, that makes me question it more. Why are you using it after, you know what I'm saying? Like after all,
That's what I mean. I'm like, I'm sorry, but
it's less like relevant today. So yeah, I
Yeah,
agree with that.
it's very disheartening. And you know, the teacher I go to, she is not the same generation as me. She's an older generation, and
Yeah,
she
and that's
danced at Jacob's Pillow. You know, and she is with the anatomy, the science, and she seeks the information.
yeah, I
But
mean,
I've
I do
met
understand.
also, yeah,
Yeah.
I've met teachers who are younger or as old as me, and somehow they're still not looking at the big picture. They're looking at one component, and it's, is this student fitting the mold? Okay, that's an easy student to work with. Let's pour all my attention into that person. The person over there with flat feet, bad turnout, and maybe has a little bit more curves, I'm going to ignore them until they finally
Mm.
decide one day to leave the classroom, because they're not fitting the mold and they're harder for me as an instructor to work with.
I mean, how common is that in dance studios that we see in competition world? Is to kind of let those
Yeah.
dancers just kind of fall through the cracks, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I was definitely that dancer, because I
Right.
was like a turned in, knock kneed, flat footed, weirdly hypermobile, just like all the weird stuff happening was happening in my body. And nobody knew how to like really address that.
It's
Uh,
we have so many similarities, even though we grew up in different types of training. We still have similar experiences.
yeah.